Okay, thank you all for joining us today. This is a training that is similar to the standard monthly Atlas training, but it has been specially designed for the consultants and the NCDOT team members who are working in the stage 1 space. So that's feasibility studies, scoping reports, express design reports. We are really excited to have you with us today because the Atlas tool is a very integrated part of your workflow and the guidance that you guys are using. And if you are not already using Atlas, we want to take this opportunity to show you how easy it is to use as part of the workflow, but also how it can accelerate your work, how it can give you better data. We'll go through some of those today, and then we're going to demo each of the different tools and show you how it is used as part of the materials that you already have as guidance. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about is just a basic overview. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. We are going to give you kind of a high level, but then we really want to dive into the specifics related to the express design project scoping report process. So first, we want to show you some of the benefits of Atlas. You all may have heard this in presentations, you may know this from working with it already, but I think it's really important not just to be using Atlas because you have to as part of the guidance, but that you are seeing the benefits of it as well, so that you're using it as part of these projects, as well as any other pre-construction projects that you may have. So the first is improved GIS data. So the data that comes into the Atlas map tools is coming in, most of it is coming in as a grab from other agencies that are hosting that data. And what that means is that anytime that you go to Atlas and you are pulling in that file, you're pulling in the latest and greatest version of that file. It's not a copy. It's not something that, there's a few that have been created in-house by different disciplines in Atlas or in NCDOT, but most of the almost 800 layers that we have are directly from those sources. You can see when the layer has been updated, and so you have access to that metadata. That means that the data that Team A and Team B and Team C are pulling are all going to be consistent. You're all looking at the same data sources, and you're all getting the most current version of that data. The additional data benefit on the GIS side is that when you have created data for your project, so study area limits, sometimes we have layers that are related to the findings of your studies that are GIS based. Those are all going to go back up onto Atlas as well. And then that data is available to other teams. So if you have a project that is just starting, you can look and see where other recent projects have occurred, and you can see which projects those were, so that you can talk to those teams and not have to duplicate the data. But you can start by building on the data that they had previously developed. The second major benefit is an improved analysis process. So what we're going to demo for you today is how you can use the Atlas mapping tools in order to understand what the key features are in your study area. And you can do this early in the process, you can do this later in the process. Certainly as you collect data through the pre-construction process in the field, it's going to start to supersede some of it, but especially for the work that this team is doing, it's going to give you those answers in a really quick way. Again, that's going to be using that consistent data across teams. You can customize the layer selection, so you can get just the data that you're looking for in order to answer the questions at hand. And then it's going to provide a quick summary report so that you're not having to input all the data back in, but it's going to already output it for you in a form that you're able to just submit as is. The last major benefit is data governance. This is particularly relevant for the deliverables, for those deliverables that are in their final version that you're uploading. If you upload them through Atlas, then it automatically is putting in all the properties, such as a consistent naming convention and the word final key deliverables. It gives it access to external agencies when that's appropriate. All those properties have been previously vetted with the business unit, which means that you're not having to struggle to guess which box to check when you're filling out those properties yourself under SharePoint. That makes it easier for you to be sure you're uploading it correctly. It also makes it easier for all other units to find your reports and have a high level of confidence that they have the correct report and that it is the final version. So as I mentioned, if you are accessing Atlas, it's a quick thing. So just pop into your Connect site from any of your scoping projects. In this case, we've got one of our scoping projects here, and you have access to the 3 Atlas tools here on the bottom left side. We're going to be demoing all 3, and once you're in one, you'll be able to get to the others. But what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and look at each of the 3 accessed from the Connect site, just so that you can see what that looks like when you open it up. So as I mentioned, there are 3 tools that are used in the project development process: the search tool, the screening tool, and the workbench. So we think of the search tool like the gateway. This is what's going to get you access to all of those almost 800 layers. That is something that you can use to zoom in. You can pull data down so that you can actually download it into your own GIS layers, into your own GIS maps. If you're making an environmental map, for example, you can have the metadata and all of the information available for all of those layers. The screening tool is a smaller subset, and that allows you to run a report for a particular study area. And that's going to give you the reporting data that's going to say what is in and what is not in your study area. And then the third one is the workbench. This is project specific. So the first 2, search tool and screening tool, are not. You can go in with no project in mind. You can zoom into an area. You can download a study area. You can have it be completely project neutral. You can look at a larger area. Workbench is project specific, 1 workbench per 1 Connect site. And so once you're in that project workbench, that's where you're uploading those final project deliverables and getting data that others have uploaded as well. The GIS data, just to give you a high-level overview, is really wide-ranging. And we're putting out materials that are going to give you an overview of what those are. Those should be up online here in the next couple of weeks. Just to give you the perspective, though, there's a range here from wetlands and streams up to utilities. And like I said, most of these are pulled from external sources, but there are some that NCDOT has created based on previous projects or based on data that they've gathered over the years. That's going to be North Carolina specific. So here's an example of some of the sources that we pull data in from. Now, of course, we will talk in a bit about the disadvantage of pulling in live data. Once in a while, those original sources have pulled their data down, or there's a problem on their side, and we may get an error because of that. So we'll talk about some strategies about how to deal with those types of errors. Okay, now on to the Express Design project scoping process. I'm not going to read this to you. This is exactly from the draft guidance, though. And the important thing that I want to highlight is that it says all components of your process are going to be uploaded through the Atlas workbench. So this is standard procedure, and we're just going to show you how to do that. We've broken down the process into 5 major buckets, 5 different steps, and we'll go through each of those steps today. The first one is developing the project scoping study area. You'll do that in GIS, and then you'll use that study area in the Atlas mapping tools. The second is to develop the Atlas screening tool. You'll use that study area that you had previously created, and then you'll use the Atlas screening tool in order to get that report. The third is preparing an environmental features map using data that you've downloaded from the search tool. The next is uploading all of the deliverables into the workbench. Well, excuse me. The fourth step is to complete the preliminary environmental considerations checklist and the merger pre-screening. And then the final step is to upload the final deliverables. So we're going to start today with the Atlas screening tool. So this is the first of our mapping tools. And as I mentioned, you will have previously created a scoping study area. So this is something you're going to do offline in ArcMap or in your ArcGIS program. The reason that we encourage you to do that offline instead of in the Atlas tool is because it's going to give you a better opportunity for the precision that you need. There's guidance about how to create that study area, and that's just easier to do if you're working in your offline program. Certainly, you can create a study area by drawing lines or drawing a polygon. You can do it by searching for a step number and then drawing a buffer around that. There's a lot of different ways that you can create a study area. But for this particular process, we're going to encourage you to create it offline and then upload it into the screening tool. So I'm going to go through what the general steps look like, and then we will bring it over into Atlas and we'll demo that for you. So first, building your study area. Like I said, there's several different ways that you can do this. We're going to focus on the uploading for today's training. Second, there is an opportunity to buffer. Now, if you have a polygon, you're not required to buffer. And in the workflow for this process, we actually don't want you to buffer. The study area that you will have created based on the guidance is great, just the way it is. And you're not, you don't need a buffer in order to be able to have the report provide you with the accurate data. If you were to do a point or a line feature, rather than using a polygon or uploading your own polygon, you would be required to use the buffer just to give you a shape, polygon shape. In this case, you don't need to put a 0 for the buffer. You can just leave it blank. Next, you'll select the layers that you want to use in your screening. And we'll go through the process for that. You can manually select them. We're also creating what we call templates, which is a pre-selected group of layers that is going to answer the questions that you are being asked to respond to. And then finally, you'll run the screening report, and then you can download that to your desktop and then re-upload that into the workbench. So we'll demo those, like I said, in just a minute. But first, to show you what the results are going to look like. So this is a screening report. So this is what it's going to look like when you download it. It's going to give you a map of your study area. In this case, this example also has the buffer. Yours will not. And then it has some basic information that always comes in about your study area. You're then going to see the list of layers that you have selected for your screening report. And it's going to give you information about each one. How many of them are in your study area, the total amount within, and the nearest feature. And then you also get metadata on the layers on the report. So as I mentioned, you may get some layers that are going to kick back errors. And there's two general reasons why we get errors in Atlas. The first is that if there's an issue on the sources side, if the processor is temporarily down, or if they have been reorganizing their layers, sometimes that happens and it disconnects them. Let us know about that. And sometimes we can go in and investigate. Sometimes we can let you know, that happens, but it's routinely back up again within a few minutes. Sometimes it's a matter of going back and fixing those broken links. But certainly the atlas@ncdot.gov email is the best source if you have those kinds of questions. There's also times when we overwhelm the system because we're pulling from all those different sources. If we ask it to pull too many layers all at the same time, some of them may time out before we're able to pull them. And that is then going to show you errors on the layers that didn't get pulled in a timely manner. So with the DOT templates, the pre-selected group of layers, we've tried to build those in a way that does not overwhelm the system. If you select all of the layers within the screening tool, you will get errors. And so that's one of the strategies, is simply to use fewer errors, use fewer layers, try to rerun it again, and then often that will work. You can see here, token required. This is a layer that you'll get when there's a lock on the layer. Once in a while, this is an intentional lock. Sometimes it happens inadvertently. You can always email us and ask if you have questions about that. And then this service unavailable is kind of a different way to say the geoprocessing service unavailable. Again, this is when the source is not quite ready to provide the layers when we're asking for them. Now, I do want to pause for a minute here because if you get an error when you are running your screening report as part of your express design process or your scoping report, what do you do? And so I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna open this up to the feasibility study team and the corridor development team to talk through what they would like you to do in this situation.
Thanks, Teresa. This is Terry Arlano. I formerly led the Central Corridor Division Engineers, and this is something we haven't had a lot of time to talk about internally yet because we just kind of were discussing it the other day. But I think the most important thing is that we want to make sure the reports are not just being generated and there's no attention given to the fact that something is producing an error. If it is, try to go through, the steps that are listed out here to resolve that error. And if you can't resolve it, just kind of give us feedback on that's why it's still in there. So we're aware of that and we can note it for the project file. There may be some more specific information going out in the near future, but like I said, we haven't really had a chance to digest how we want to handle these situations.
Very good. And we would like you to problem solve. So sometimes that means trying again the next day. Sometimes it means contacting Atlas in order to ask if there's anything that we can see on the back end that might explain that error. Ideally, you wouldn't just get all the errors, call it quits, and submit it as is. So whatever the eventual guidance may say, it just a heads up that it may require a bit more time just to troubleshoot if you end up with that situation. Okay, any other discussion on that?
Teresa, there's a question in the chat box. I don't know if you saw it or not. About how many layers do you recommend to select in one run? From
very good. I have not been tracking the chat. Let me answer that and then we'll go back and catch up and see if there's other questions as well. So it depends on the layers, and we can't give you just a black and white number because some of the layers are much more data intensive and some are much less. And so when we create the templates, which we're, like I said, going to be doing for purposes of your work as well here, we take that into account. And there's sometimes when we break what would have ideally been one template into two, just to avoid that issue. You may find just through trial and error that one of the layers that you routinely get seems to always cause trouble when it's done in combination with others, but when you do it by itself, it works fine. As the system continues to bolster and as the sources modify their data and it's kind of a moving target, we're trying to let you do as many as possible. But like I said, I can't give you one number.
I can expound on that a little bit.
Thank you.
So essentially we try to keep it around 100 when we started, but of course then as time goes on, more people have been wanting to put more layers in there, so we're up to 200, over 200 now. That's
in the screening tool.
In the yes, excuse me, in the screening tool. So if you screen for 200 plus layers, it's going to break it. And by break it, I mean it's just going to fail your screening. And you're going to have a cascading list of errors after it hits a certain point. Generally, we're trying to keep it around the low 100s, but as Teresa mentioned, some of these larger layers can influence that a little bit. But when the new tool comes out, we'll be able to expand that hopefully by a good margin. So that's just basic rules of thumb there.
Great, thank you. Okay. All right. Morgan, are you going to take over for me? Oh, this says workbench. That's not right. I want to demo the screening tool.
Sorry, yeah, I'm trying to get some of these folks signed up right now. If you don't have access, please keep trying. I'm sure Lonnie's probably working through some of those. I've added about 10 or 12 people so far.
So have I, Morgan. I started at the top of the list and you must have started at the bottom.
I did.
So, okay, good. I think we've gotten everybody added. So if y'all want to try to log in, if you want to take a minute, Teresa, and let them try to log in now, you might need to show them where to go to again for that.
Yes, great idea.
Or put the link in the chat might be easiest.
All right,
The
well,
only
that's
one
true
I didn't
because
have was Samantha. Samantha, did you send me your NCID? I didn't see your NCID in the chat.
Hi, yes, I did. I believe it's my full name. It's
Okay.
Samantha Morrison.
Okay, I'll check on it. Thank you.
so as I had mentioned, the workbench is project specific, but the search and screening tools are not. So if you were in your Project Connect site, you can get to the search and screening tools down here in the bottom left. Alternately, if you don't want to log into Connect, you can get to the search and screening tools through the Atlas Connect site. And I've just put the link to that in the chat as well. So that's when you open up the sheet here, a couple things to bring your attention to. There's a lot of data in here, a lot of information that's been compiled over the years, different training modules that we've done, different policy questions that you may have, standards. We can get into that a little bit, but just to bring your attention to the fact that this website does have a lot of great information. One thing I'll mention before I get into the screening tool is this frequently asked questions here. This is something that we created a couple of months ago based on meetings that we were having with the divisions and the discipline units earlier in 2022. And this has a lot of questions that you may have. And so if you have a question about any of the tools, this is a good place to start. This is a lot of the common questions that we were getting about errors or about how to use the different tools. So that's this frequently asked questions right here on the top left. So when you click on the, I can't type and talk at the same time. When you click on the screening tool, you're going to be asked to log in every time. And then when you get in, then you will click using your NCID account. Morgan, I know that you've been problem solving in the background. Are you ready with the study area to demo this, or do you want me to move forward?
I can demo. I don't have a study area ready to go. I mean, I could draw one real quick. Is that all right?
I'll go ahead and do it. Yeah, I've got it, so no problem. Let you keep working in the background. Yes, the question about, are the templates set up to keep screening limited to under 200? They are. And we test the templates before we put them out there to make sure that to the extent that we have control, that they are going to work reliably. Okay, so when you come into the screening tool, you have 3 different ways that you can move forward. You have to start by developing a study area or bringing in a study area. What you will do is you will upload a study area, and what you will have in the background is you will have a study area previously done, and you will have those files zipped up into one upload, one zip upload. And let me show you one more thing before we move forward. About halfway down on the left side of this page is the NCDOT Atlas standards. Anytime that you are asked to upload a GIS layer into Atlas, it has to have certain properties. And we have templates, different kind of templates, that you can use when you're building any of your GIS layers that have all those properties already populated. They have them, the attributes correctly in there. And so when you build your layer, then it's ready to then be uploaded to Atlas. This document is a great reference. It has information about all the different layers that are required to be uploaded into Atlas, and it has specifics about what the layers should look like, which ones are required, which ones are not required, the file formats that are required. It'll tell you the okay, so for example, merger study area. So this is a GIS layer that will be uploaded through Atlas Workbench. And when you upload it, it needs to have these fields, these attributes. And then it will tell you which ones of them are required to include. And then it will tell you the type and the description, what the idea is behind that. Also on this page are the Atlas GIS templates. So if you're uploading your shapefile through the screening tool, it still needs to follow the guidance. This that I'm talking about now is more related to the workbench. Just want to mention it all because we're talking about GIS at the moment. So this Atlas standards document here will tell you what your layers need to include. This Atlas GIS templates link here will give you all of the ready to use Atlas GIS templates so that you are following all of the requirements in the Atlas standards. Any questions about that? Okay. So I'm going to show you how to do it by project ID. This can be used if you have a spot number or a STIP number. Like I said, based on the guidance for the express design, we want you to have pre-created that study area, but this will get you there. So I'm going to type in my STIP number and hit the search, choose it here, and then hit next. It walks you through it pretty intuitively. And then this is where we're really excited to have you all be using the same layers. If you want to just select your own layers from scratch, using the entire list of 210 layers that are available in the screening tool, you'll start with create new template. All a template means in this case is a selection of GIS layers. We are going to be providing for you in the next couple of weeks a template or multiple templates that are specifically geared towards the workflow for this team. And when you choose use DOT template, then you can see all of the templates that are available currently. And again, these templates are simply a pre-selection of a grouping of GIS layers for a particular theme. So we have worked with the different disciplines in order to develop these based on how their teams do their work and different groupings of topics that they felt would be relevant. So for example, federal land, rail, and air. It tells you here the purpose of this template, and then this one lists the layers that are included in this template. And when you select that, we don't want to do a buffer. We're just going to leave that blank. When you do that, here's your list of all the 210 layers that are available on the screening tool. And what you'll see is that it has checks next to the half dozen or so that are included in this template. I can always take those checks off. I can add more checks. You can close these in order to shrink down your list. So all of the layers that are available are grouped into two major buckets, human environment and natural environment. Once you expand that, you'll see subcategories within each. Once you expand a subcategory, you will then see all the layers available in that subcategory. When we go into the search tool, you'll see the exact same format, but there will be way more layers. So this has 210, the search tool has almost 800. So like I said, you can add any of these that you'd like after your pre-selection of your template. Click next. And then here's the step where you're starting to personalize. So I'm going to call this my scoping Atlas scoping report. You can put a description in if you'd like. That will show up on your final report. And then it has the STIP ID and it had the associated spot ID for that project. I've intentionally chosen a template that only has a few layers so that the processing time will be pretty quick. I will note that if you choose a lot of layers with a high processing time, wiggle your mouse every few minutes, you will time out. And we don't want you to have to start over.
Hey, Teresa, there's a question in the chat box about How can you tell how many layers have been selected prior to actually doing the screening?
Good question. Morgan or Leilani, do you know the answer to that?
There, it doesn't explicitly tell you that I can remember. But that's, if you think that's something worthwhile, then we can look at adding something like that, some type of indication that would tell you how many layers.
How many layers were selected as part of the template?
So that if you're adding
Or how many
layers, you know when maybe you're starting to hit an upper limit.
No, that would be a good thing to put in there so people can make that obvious. I know when and maybe, in our one thing we haven't talked about, we're combining the search and screening tools into one functionality. And in search right now, it does tell you how many layers you've selected. And so I
Gotcha.
think that'll be a part of the functionality when these two things are combined. And basically, you'll have the functionality of both tools on one map without having to switch between tools. So you'll basically still do everything pretty much the same way. And like I said, I know on the search tool, it does tell you the exact number of layers you've selected. And yes, somebody just said, can you use a template in search? Yes, you can. There are
Same templates are
in search.
available.
Yeah.
A maximum scoping area that you can run at a time.
You're talking about square miles or area, like 10 square miles right now. But like that new tool is actually going to be using the cloud for processing. So it's going to greatly expand that potential study area that you can draw in or select a buffer on. But right now it's 10 square miles.
All right. So now that I hit next and it finished my screening, all I have left to do is download it. You can download it in several different ways. I'm going to download my report. This is what is required to then be uploaded as part of your submittal package. And you can see, similar to what we were looking at on the PowerPoint, you've got a map showing your study area. It's got some basic information. It tells you which screening template that you used, if you used one. And then it has some information about the area. This comes with every report, this first page. You'll note that this map does not show the features in the map, but the next page will then tell you all the information about the study area, about the resources that are in that study area. So this report is showing me that for each of the different layers, it can tell me how many features within that layer is within my study area. If it was an acreage, a total acreage, and if it wasn't, then how close the next nearest thing is. And then you have your metadata page. Any questions about that process? Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. All right, next we are going to be looking at the search tool. So the search tool then is for step 3. Your environmental features map is going to be developed in GIS offline, the way that you've always done it. What Atlas is doing is giving you all the layers, all the data layers to populate, or if not all, most, all of the data layers, or most of the data layers, depending on how Atlas is continuing to grow. As we find out a desire for additional layers, we're adding those in wherever possible. There's only a very small handful that we have not been able to add to Atlas because the way that the source produces the data shows it in an online version, but it's just not a version that we can access the way that the programs talk to each other, but most. So let me go through one quick slide of what that's going to look like, and then we'll go over to the search tool. So this screen, which isn't showing it as a, all right, probably an easier way to do that. This screen is reminding you that information about which layers to use are in the instructions that are going to be coming out from the feasibility and corridor development groups. So this has a list of all of the layers that should be reviewed. And for those layers that had not been available in Atlas at the time of the development of the guidance document, those are listed in the appendix that will specify the source and the location for those. So back to our demo. Okay, so we're back to the Atlas Connect site. And here I'm going to go to the search tool instead. All right, when you come in here, because of the length of our training, we're not going to go through every one of these options. But when you come in here, what you'll see is that the search tool is different than the screening tool in that it does not walk you through step by step in one order of how to do things. Instead, it allows you to do things in whatever order you want. So you can choose your layers and then you can zoom into your area. You can go to your area first, and then you can add your layers. There's also things that you can do just to look at it on the map that are not going to be part of your ultimate downloads, but can be helpful if you just want to be able to take a measurement or show somebody a feature on the map. So here we can just zoom into an area. And then when you start to look up here, you've got a lot of different tools for drawing. So for example, you can draw a polygon. Again, this is not going to be downloaded as a study area. This is just so that you can say, this is the area I want to look at for visual purposes. You can find a location where you put in GPS coordinates and it will zoom you in to there. You can take measurements. So if you want to measure the length of the street within your area, you can have that information. You can add a label that then adds that information right there to your map. You can print this kind of as a PDF or do a screenshot of this. So again, there's a lot of just visual tools that are part of the search tool, things that you can do in order to see the features on the map. Because what you can do is by adding your layers, you're able to see what those look like right there on your map together. We're putting out a training module that's going to go through all these in a little more detail. So again, because of our limited time together today, I'm not going to go through every feature in the search tool, just to kind of give you a feel for the extent of the functionality of it. But you're able to search by category, which is the same categories that we looked at in the screening tool. You can also search by document. What you may not know is that built into Atlas is a grouping of layers for a lot of the standard reports that are done on the pre-construction side. And these are groupings of layers that were developed by the different disciplines. So for example, if you're going to do an indirect and cumulative effects report, these are the layers that are typically in that report. And so we can select these layers I actually don't want to select all the EPA layers at the moment. You can select all of these layers and know that they're all going to be relevant to that report, which then makes it easier to download and create your maps for those reports. So you could say, I'm going to create a community characteristics report. These are all the layers I'm going to need. I'm going to select them, download them, put them in my GIS map, and I'm ready to go. Really helps speed up that process. Go back to map, and now it has added all of these layers that I selected to my map. When you zoom out, you'll be able to see the different layers as they're populating within your area. When you are done, when you've selected all the layers that are of interest to you, either by selecting them manually or using the templates, you click download. Turn off my measurement first. My download's not working. Morgan, what am I doing wrong?
Not sure.
I assume it's user error.
It's possible that, well, no, you would, you have features within that polygon, correct?
I don't, that's what I was supposed to say, Morgan. I don't see any features that you have on within that polygon.
Let's draw an actual study area rather than just a graphic area. There we go. So you have to have a study area built in. I skipped that step for brevity. Shouldn't have skipped that step. So you got a study area, you got layers, and then you're able to download your layers, and you can download it in any version. It will put them. So you have that looks.
Oh, so the first one was just a map drawing?
It was just a map drawing, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But a good learning moment there in that, you know, graphics are just to look at. They don't really have any functionality, but then you have a separate tool just for drawing a study area that is functional and will geoprocess those layers. So.
And then you'll end up with a download zip that you can open and save to your computer, and then open those files in your GIS map. So that was the fastest demo of the search tool ever. Anyone have any questions about the high level?
Did you say you're able to view on the screen the different features?
Yeah, I have chosen poorly, I think, my layers. Although the census boundaries should be showing up.
So if there was something inside that screening boundary, it would actually show it there.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. No worries.
Yeah, it would show it, and then and just to kind of show you here too, you can always go back and add or remove additional layers, and then just pop back to the map. And you can go back and forth as you look at your layers. You can always go back and forth.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Let me back one last time. To our workbench tool. All right, so this is the third tool. And you're going to use this tool for those last two steps to complete the checklists and to upload your final deliverables. So what you'll see when you go into the workbench tool for your scoping projects is a menu that looks like this. It's got a little bit of basic project info, and then it has several tabs on the left-hand side. What we're going to be looking at for purposes of today's demoing is primarily the environmental considerations, which is how you complete this checklist. This, for those who may have used it previously, this used to be in the pre-construction workbench. Just to clarify, projects that are in the scoping phase have got a workbench that looks like this. The projects that are in the pre-construction phase, once they're on the STIP and they're moving forward into stage 2, they have a different workbench that has a longer list on the left side that has all the different disciplines listed. This preliminary environmental considerations checklist had been on that pre-construction workbench. It's now been moved over here because it's really done during the time when you're doing work in stage 1. We're also going to look at the merger pre-screening that had a change just this week, so we'll share that update with you as well. And the other tabs are used for all your other deliverables. So the guidance document lists very specifically what is involved. You all, since you're working with these units, are probably very well aware of what all of the different uploads are, and they can all be done through the Atlas Workbench. So the purpose is to use the Connect site for all of the back and forth on the draft stage. And then once you're ready to upload, once you're ready to document that final version, you upload it through Atlas instead of through SharePoint. And what happens is that when you upload it through Atlas, it is saved on SharePoint. So you only have to do it once, but if you do it here instead of there, it has all of those data governance benefits. And it's going to be with that consistent naming convention and in a place where other teams know to come find it. So this is where you'll be uploading the all those deliverables, those 2 on the left. All right, one final demo. All right, so for this one, it is project specific, meaning it's not going to be available on the Atlas website, the Atlas Connect site. Instead, you have to go in through Connect to your specific project, and then you will choose the Atlas Workbench here on the left side. So as we saw in the PowerPoint, this is what your screen looks like. You can see here, preliminary environmental considerations is that bottom tab. And for each of these tabs, what you're going to see is you're going to see a checklist or multiple categories where you will expand out in order to get the information. You'll also see little notes down here. Some of the questions are required. And what that means is that if it has the asterisk, we're asking that it is, we assume that it is part of every project. Even if the question is, are all activities done? Or were there any issues found? By filling out the questions with the check or with the asterisks, then when you click check status, this is a project that we probably haven't filled out with Atlas yet. When you click the check status, you then will have different color check marks that show up. When you are actively filling out the Atlas Workbench as you go through the project, then these check marks will turn green when a section is finished, and then you know that that section is finished. That can be a really easy way in order to check the status, see how the progress is going on your project. Like I said, if the data is being uploaded as you go. So the preliminary environmental considerations have got one category, and all the questions are here that you would typically respond to as part of that step. Now, this had been a separate Word document. We've just now recently got it up onto the Atlas Workbench, and so the guidance document that you'll be receiving is going to refer to responding here instead of using the previous format. And when you respond to these questions, and you do that for all of them, at the end, you can click View current section PDF. But save it first. And when I open it, here's all the questions, here's all the responses. So it will give you this PDF that has all the information that you have just filled out, and this is something that can be shared then and attached as part of your deliverable. The second is the merger pre-screening. This had a questionnaire previously, and the most recent change is because the questionnaire is now in a separate form that is being asked to be filled out offline, this list of questions has been replaced with an upload for that form. If you have any questions about the change in that, your feasibility study team would be happy to answer those questions. These conclusion questions are then really important after you've finished to make sure to click yes or no, because again, this will help you be able to see the status. And for any other teams that are looking at the data here through the Atlas Workbench, they'll be able to see your status as well. And then these other tabs is where you will upload all of the different deliverables that are part of the workflow. Any questions about those? Is draft design concept map we should be uploading or final? For Workbench, final. Anything that needs to be reviewed should go through Connect, and then anything that has finished being reviewed and is approved should go up through Atlas. Now, with some of our deliverables, we acknowledge that some things are just never quite done. You may do a cost estimate, you may do concept designs, and then in a year or 2 years, it's reopened or it's updated. And that's not what we mean by draft, something that's more of a living document or something that will evolve over time. Instead, the final version at that time, we're saying this is as good as it's going to get right now, knowing that it may be reopened later. One of the improvements that's on our list with IT is to allow for what we call document sets, which is like a folder instead of a single upload. And that'll let you upload multiple versions over a period of time. So for example, for cost estimates, you do your cost estimate, it's done, it's good. You use it in whatever product you've developed it for. And then in a year, you update those cost estimates based on the revised concepts or based on new information that's come in. And then you upload that new version. And so you may have a new final version that is added to the project set. And the benefit of that is you have that history, you've got all those different versions of it, and they were used for different reasons. And we want to be able to track those milestones. We want to be able to see what it was at that point in time. Okay, any questions before I close out the workbench?
Hey, Teresa, let me ask a question. I think Morgan and I have added most people. Is anyone still having trouble?
That's good.
And I'll hang out for a few minutes if anybody has any additional questions or issues accessing
After we're done.
this, if anybody wants to stick around.
All right, so we wanted to share with you a couple of things that we're working on that we're particularly excited about, because Atlas is a constantly evolving program. As we get input from users, as users use it and find additional value in it, we're constantly growing the functionality of it and improving the interface and adding to the data that's available. Some of the really big changes that are coming are that, as Leilani mentioned earlier, the search and screening tools are going to be combined into one tool called the Atlas Map. And that's going to allow you to run your screening and then download the layers all in one step rather than in multiple different programs. Leilani or Morgan, anything else that you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I would just pay attention. We're going to release a quarterly update, and we're going to try to keep doing that, even though there won't be many updates to the current tool, just new layers that we have added, because those are constantly in flux. And we'll try to keep folks updated on when that transition is going to occur to the new Atlas map from the current tools. So just keep an eye on that.
We're looking at the Atlas Map rollout in the next few months, 3 to 4 months-ish.
Yeah, I think the Atlas map might actually be the third quarter because we're moving to the cloud and we're waiting on big DIT. We found out yesterday we're waiting on what they call big DIT, not DOT DIT, if that makes any sense to anybody, to set up that cloud pipeline. And so we're a little delayed. We're going to be a little delayed from what we thought was going to be first quarter because that's going to take them a little bit longer to get that cloud set up. But like I said, the cloud's going to give us a lot more processing capability, bigger study areas, handle bigger layers. And so I think it'd be very worthwhile. And I don't know if you have this in your presentation, Teresa, but you can always reach us at that atlas@ncdot.gov. If you get away from this and you still have problems with access or problems with layers or just general questions, make sure that you email us at that.
Yes, thank you.
And then somebody just asked, can the email associated with our NCID be updated or changed? Yeah, you can change that on your side. You can go to NCID and I guess you could apply for a new one if you're wanting to, like if you switch companies or something. Just make sure you send us your new NCID once you get that, and we'll get you added in.
Yeah, it's my understanding that if you change companies, you have to have a new NCID. That's been our experience because they
Yeah.
put you in a different Active Directory group, and I think, keeps things clean.
Yeah, and that's another good point, Teresa. If you're new to your firm, make sure you talk to your admin to make sure you are on your company's Active Directory, because then that's how you get permissions into the different projects and into the Atlas tools.
All right, ongoing alignment of Atlas Workbench with PDN. So one of the changes that we made recently is we added all the PDN codes to the Workbench, the upload questions, where it said, upload this document. If there is an associated PDN deliverable, we've added that code just to make it easier for users to compare back and forth. And there's continuing conversations about how we can make it even more aligned so that it's easier for users to be comfortable following the PDN and using the Atlas Workbench at the same time. Atlas homepage is an initiative to give users a place where they can access all the tools, including the Workbench, from one place instead of having to log in multiple times. And then improvements to the Workbench left navigation. So with the scoping Workbench, this is not such a problem because you only have about 6 tabs. On the pre-construction Workbench, there's 20 or 25. And so we're just doing some reorganization to make it easier to navigate through those. So folks who are using the pre-construction Workbench, hopefully we'll see those improvements soon as well. Lewis Raymond found a loophole. I'm impressed. All right, here's our email address one more time. We do have a little time built in for questions whether it's continuing to troubleshoot in the background or questions about the tools or the process. We've got your whole feasibility study corridor development team online with us, and so they can answer questions about the application of Atlas within the workflow if you have those today. Okay, anything else from the feasibility corridor groups that you'd like to say before we close out today?
I think we're good, Teresa, but thank you for leading the training.
It was a little hard to hear you, Terry.
Sorry about that. I said thank you. I don't think we have any questions or anything, but thank you for the help with this today.
Okay. Okay, well, we will officially close the training. I will stop the recording, but we will hang out online so that if folks are still wanting to do some troubleshooting, you can stay online and talk to Morgan and Leilani and us so that we can get you sorted out. Thank you all for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.